I thank you for inviting me to testify at this critical hearing on the crisis of trafficked, exploited, and the staggering 320,000 missing migrant children. Today, my goal is to spark action to rescue children, prosecute traffickers, and dismantle trafficking infrastructure. We must prevent children from being lost into slave labor, commercial sex, organ harvesting, and other unspeakable evils. Migrant children are working overnight shifts in slaughterhouses and factories, and some may die today because they don't have the knowledge or skills to do the job that they're supposed to be doing. But they're doing it because they need to repay debts to their smugglers and traffickers. Children, boys and girls, are being sold for sex. Just last month, I spoke with a care provider in Florida who told me about cases of migrant children as young as 8 with sexually transmitted diseases. 8 years old. Last week, I spoke with a private investigator in Texas who shared challenges trying to find an emergency shelter for this one girl. She's only 12, an unaccompanied minor who was 9 months pregnant and about to go into labor. How did we get here? How did we get here? For over a decade, the United States Department of Health and Human Services has been responsible for the suffering of countless children. HHS has a 10-year demonstrated record of losing children to sponsors who abuse, exploit, traffic, and harm children in unthinkable ways. Now, to be fair to HHS, they are not an investigative or law enforcement agency. HHS simply does not have the knowledge, skills, ability, or the tradecraft to protect children from traffickers. Child trafficking has evolved into an international syndicate of gangs and cartels. It's highly organized and efficient. It mirrors the tactics and operations of terrorist organizations. Smugglers and traffickers have moved more than 500,000 children. They flooded across our borders, and we have delivered them to criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations who are using the UC program as a white glove delivery service of children. Criminal sponsors are defrauding the US government by using this government program as a logistical chain in their trafficking operation. These children are not merely victims, they are hostage of transnational criminals and the financial backbone of material support for organizations seeking to profit off of the lives of children. This simply must change. Now, there is hope if we act with urgency. Let's implement simple safety measures like DNA testing for children and their sponsors. Let's implement stringent penalties like prison for sponsors who are unable to produce the children they are in charge of. And again, there's hope if we act, but action must include oversight, transparency, and accountability. Now, according to oversight conducted by Senator Grassley, who's been a true champion of these endangered children, HHS failed to fully comply with subpoenas that were issued by DHS to investigate evidence of child exploitation the senator referred to law enforcement earlier this year. That's just simply unacceptable. HHS should be commanded to comply with the Inspector General Empowerment Act to enable cross-agency data sharing. And let's treat child trafficking as the national security threat that it truly is. Let's mobilize the full power of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to dismantle these criminal networks. 1, we can elevate the activity of child trafficking on the NIPIF, which is the National Intelligence Priority Framework. Number 2, we can designate child trafficking as a terrorist activity so that centers like the National Counterterrorism Center, the Terrorist Screening Center, the National Targeting Center can provide the manpower, the tradecraft, and immediate implementation of targeting these trafficking networks. Every child lost to the current system is a tragedy. We cannot be a nation that looks the other way. We have a moral imperative to care for children that the government takes into custody. And the time to act is now. Children are in need now. Children are depending on you now. And I thank you for your time and your attention to this crisis of this trafficked, exploited, and missing children. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.